5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ding-a-ling-a-ling, ring-a-ling-a-ling. Wait, what? Whoa, wait a second. Who's on the other line? Danny Odell?
Yo, what's going
Danny Odell
on?
official? Oh
And
my
I'm him.
gosh, there he is. There he is.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
lots of Panthers going on in this picture right here.
I mean, this is only like 2% of what I got in this office.
2%.
Yep.
Do you collect like Panthers like trading cards? Like, do you have cards like, oh, I got a Cam Newton rookie. I've got a Luke Kuechly rookie.
Yeah, I got a couple of those, but I'm more into like the signed jerseys, signed helmets. I like collecting game worn stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's more of my game.
Got you.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it is the Danny Odell official coming at you from. It's always fun when I have people not in North Carolina, but where are you coming at? From like 5 minutes away or something?
Yeah, from right down Gilead Road.
You're probably the closest interview I've done so far.
Yeah,
without
we could
having
probably
someone
hear each other
in my house. I know, we could yell out the window. That's so funny. Gosh.
Yep.
So Danny, I'm trying to think when I first met you. What was it? When did you move up here from Florida?
So
was it 2 years? 3 years ago? 2 years ago.
January of 21.
Okay, so just over 2 years.
Yeah, just over 2 years. So
and we could say a lot's happened in your life since then. We could say,
yeah,
just a couple
came
things.
With a plan. I came with a plan, and I
that's awesome.
Knocked it out.
That's awesome. Heck yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And you moved up here to the North Kakalaki.
Yep.
For what purpose? Like what brought you north from Florida?
Yeah, so I grew up in Florida from 9 until 21, and I joined the military, and then I spent 7 years in the Navy, and long story short, because this could go on forever, but when I got out of the Navy, I moved back to Florida, and I was like, why the heck did I do this? This was the dumbest thing. Like, I love my family, but I don't love the past that I had here. And there's just something about that North Carolina air and the Panthers. So the running
so you were a Panthers fan?
Oh, yeah.
You were a Panthers fan down in Florida? Wow.
Yeah, well, when I was born in Virginia, so the Panthers became a team, or started to become a team in 95. So they were, advertising the Panthers. And so my dad had bought me a bandana of the Panthers. And I was like, I'm sold. The colors are really cool. And that was at 4 years old. So, so since I've been 4, die hard.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
And, if you were, let's just dream a little bit here, Danny.
Yeah.
If you were to leave, if North Carolina kicked you and Sammy out and said, y'all got to go, and you weren't allowed back in Florida, what other state do you think you would drift off to?
That's a tough one, because it wouldn't be the West Coast. I lived there for 5 years in Washington, and that place sucked, and California was not it. Maybe it's because I didn't know how to surf. I didn't like California.
Probably. I used to know how to, but not anymore.
I would honestly say East Tennessee, somewhere in the mountains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, put me in a mountain with a big old beard and, hunt my own food.
An axe.
Yeah, the only problem is there's no targets near there, so Sammy she hexes it right away. I gotta be within 5 miles of a target, or
exactly. That's so funny.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So, you've been married now. Congrats.
Yeah.
For like you just had your anniversary. When
Yeah.
did you guys
Just
actually get married? Was it?
uh, March 25th last year.
Oh, dang. That's a
Yeah.
couple
So
weeks
like,
ago.
yeah, a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's been a fun ride.
I know. It's so simple. Like everyone makes
Yeah.
such a big deal about it being hard to be married, but it's just so easy.
The
You don't
funny thing is,
argue.
yeah, I mean,
It's
everybody
complicated,
said
man.
the first year was going to be the hardest year, and this has probably
Yeah.
been the easiest year of my
Good.
life, just because it's like
Good.
I'm living my life with my best friend, and
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, there's
I love
really
it.
I love every second of it.
So good.
Yeah,
It's not common. It's really not common. But
yeah,
good for you guys. That's really, really commendable. Um, well, I'll show you. I was going to show you. You mentioned the Navy, which
yeah,
we're going to get to your military story here in a second. But
yeah.
did I ever show you this whole deal on my arm, which is
No.
actually, it's supposed to be, you can see it better when I see you in person, but it's an
Yeah, yeah,
anchor
yeah. Okay,
at the bottom of the ocean. And so
okay.
when you see the whole thing, you can see like light shining down
Yeah.
from above the water.
Uh-huh.
And it it represents a few different things, but one is growing up in a Navy family. Like I
Yeah.
was a Navy brat. And we just
Yeah.
moved, and dad flew airplanes in Vietnam, and then he worked on aircraft carriers and spent 29 years in the Navy.
Wow.
And so that was my whole childhood was Navy life,
Yeah. It's a
going to the
wild
Navy
one.
exchange.
Oh, bro, the next, honestly, like if there was one thing that I could keep, it would be the
Uh-huh.
next, bro. Like tax
Yeah.
free, everything's
I
cheap. Like
know.
it would,
I
oh my
know.
gosh, like it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you guys who don't know what the Navy Exchange is, it's an on-base like little department store, basically.
Yeah. So like a mini Walmart.
It's like a yeah, it's like a Walmart or a Sears or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
on the base. And there's no tax, and they're not trying to make money, and they're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Those Black Fridays were
Yeah.
amazing.
Uh, probably dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Dirt cheap. Well, Danny, for all kinds of reasons, other than we're just killing time here, enjoying
Yeah.
ourselves, I want to dive into your moment because
Yeah.
you mentioned it before we started, and I was fascinated by it
Yeah.
instantly. And it's one moment that I haven't really heard, in any other episodes yet. So I'm excited to get into it. So before you talk about the actual moment,
Yeah.
let's lead up a little bit to you
Yeah.
even. How did you even decide to
Yeah.
enter the military? At what were you, 18, 19 when?
No, I was actually 21. Yeah.
Oh,
So a little
21.
bit,
Okay.
yeah, a little bit of a late bloomer. Yeah, so I'll kind of start from back when I was in Virginia, at
Uh-huh.
1 to 9.
Yeah.
My mom grew up, or not grew up, I'm sorry. She got married to someone in the Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up getting stationed down in Virginia, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was born. And my dad was kind of, for lack of a better terms, a POS. I
Mm.
just, not the best guy in the world. He beat my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, just all the good stuff, right? And
That sucks.
yeah, so it did suck. So when I was 2, he bounced. When I
Okay.
was 9, we moved. But I had an uncle who was in the Navy, and he became like my father figure. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
actually funny because he was a submarine sailor in the
Uh-huh.
Navy, and that'll have some relevance in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So moved to Florida, grew up, My brother and sister academically are straight A students. Their senior year, they could skip like half their classes, still have the highest GPA, get to the best
Wow.
schools. But me, I focused on athletics.
Uh-huh.
So I
And
think
what was your sport of choice?
yeah, so
What was your
football,
sport of choice? Football?
football
Okay.
and baseball. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, my brother went to NYU
Mm-hmm.
in Brooklyn, and my sister went to UCF in Orlando. So those are really
Okay.
good schools. And I graduated high school with a 2.1, and I was like, I'll give college a try
Yes.
because, college was what everybody was doing, and I had no
Uh-huh.
idea what I was doing with my
Uh-huh.
life. I I tried college for a year, and then I was bouncing in between jobs, didn't really like college.
Mm-hmm.
Up
Mm-hmm.
here, not book smart,
Mm-hmm.
I'm street smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my mom got remarried. The stepdad wasn't my best friend when I was 18, 19, 20, 21. So
Mm-hmm.
my mom and stepdad sent me to North Carolina,
Okay.
and or my uncle Mike, Mike,
Yeah.
he took me in for a week, and he was like, dude, like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
want? And I
Mm-hmm.
said, Uncle Mike, I don't know. I don't know what to
Mm-hmm.
do. And
Mm-hmm.
mind you, this Danny, 21 Danny, is a very sensitive person, cries at everything, gets his feelings hurt all the time. And so my uncle
Mm-hmm.
goes, you need the military more than the military needs you, which is so
Interesting.
true. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm bawling my eyes out. My uncle calls a recruiter in Sarasota, Florida, and says,
Uh-huh.
set up an appointment for this guy, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Go back to Florida, and I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna try the Army, the Marines, and the Air Force before I even touch the Navy. And
Interesting.
yeah, so I didn't want to be like my uncle, even though I really did. But
Yeah.
uh Army and infantry, Army and Marines only offered me infantry, and as much as I respect those dudes who do that, I am not that guy. Um, and so that wasn't going to be my story. Um,
Uh-huh.
and then I went to the Air Force, and to get into the Air Force, you have to be really smart and not fat. Um, So they said you need to
Check,
score.
check.
Yeah, they said you need
Uh-huh.
to score better on the ASVAB and lose 50 pounds. And I said, if I lose 50 pounds, I will look like this. And
Uh-huh.
I'm not getting any smarter anytime soon. So the next day I went to a Navy recruiter,
Yeah.
took the ASVAB. They said, you're good enough for us.
Uh-huh.
And I went to the recruiters and I said, hey, this is what I don't want to do. Let's pick something else. I said, I don't want to be a
Mm-hmm.
sub on a sub, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be a cook. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, well, the only two things that we have for you is to be a submariner and a cook. And I said,
A
well,
cook on a sub?
on a sub.
Oh my
So
gosh.
So they were like, sign the contract now before you go to boot camp. We'll try our hardest to get the job changed. And it works like
Okay.
99% of the time. So,
Okay.
and that was like 8 months. So I signed my contract in August, and I left in
Okay.
April. And so every
Okay.
week, hey, can I change my job? Can I change my job? Can I change my job?
Uh-huh.
No,
Uh-huh.
nothing's popped up. Nothing's popped up. Nothing's popped up. April
Wow.
24th, 2013 comes around, and I'm still a cook on submarines.
Uh-huh.
So that's when I leave for boot camp, and that's my moment.
Okay.
So although it's kind of a wild ride, and there's way more details in that, in the time between I'm 1 years old and 21 and going to boot camp,
Mm-hmm.
boot camp was really the change for me, right? So I always lived with my mom. I
Mm-hmm.
very sensitive. hadn't really grown up yet. I was a worship leader at my church, but didn't really know what it was to have a real relationship with God. And
Mm-hmm.
then I get thrown into this like sink or swim in the most literal sense, going into
Mm-hmm.
boot camp. And at 21, you're technically an adult, but I was a boy.
Mm.
And you have to become a man really fast or you
Mm-hmm.
get eaten by the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were so many times in boot camp where I was like, man, I'm just gonna quit. Like, who's it gonna hurt if I quit? And
Yeah.
boot camp's only 2.5 months, but
And
they
where
really,
where were you?
yeah. So boot camp
Where?
was in Great Lakes, in Illinois. And funny
Okay.
thing, they actually call it Great Mistakes, for all
The
the, but yeah. So boot camp was kind of just, it was tough. They really break you down,
mm-hmm.
and they really make you feel low and feel like you are unneeded.
Humbled.
Yeah, very humble.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they really, like, it is not about you now. You are a part of a whole team. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have this selfish, pride, you're going to sink. You have to be able to work as a team, fight for your brothers next to you. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any of that experience, going back to not having a dad when I was growing up. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
my
You
uncle
had
was
no
a
reference
yeah,
point. You had no reference point. So it
nothing.
was all just completely foreign territory for you. Like
Yeah,
all of it.
yeah. I mean, I had only been to North Carolina. I'd never been outside of the East Coast my whole life. And then
Okay.
you get thrown in, you literally like they just drop like, I'm trying to think of like you're flying on the plane and then you just jump out of the helicopter and you get plopped
Mm-hmm.
right in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the person next to you, and you have to grow up fast. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I took the
Tell me,
challenge.
I want to know like a specific a specific little mini story within that of, well, there was this one day I was doing push-ups and this guy was yelling at me, or there was this one day when we had to climb this thing and I didn't, like, is there something that pops out to you, like some little
Yeah,
interesting moment within the moment? That'd be
yeah.
interesting to
So
hear.
yeah, so they're at towards the end of boot camp. You're there for 2 months. You have 2 weeks left,
Uh-huh.
and I'm still kind of getting a hang of it. Right, like you're still really fresh, but you're almost done.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a week in boot camp. I won't say the word, but it's HE double hockey sticks. It's called that week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and they put you
Oof.
through the ringer. You don't
Uh-huh.
sleep but 2 hours a night, if that. They're
Yeah.
making you do all these security drills, fire drills, flood drills, hydraulic rupture drills, all this stuff. You're running miles on end. And at the end
Mm-hmm.
of it, you have to take your last PTA test, which is the mile and a half, the push-ups, the sit-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of it, so the last day of that week, you're up for 48 hours straight.
Mm.
And I remember saying to myself, you can quit now and be a quitter
Mm-hmm.
and not know what it's like to persevere through one of the hardest challenges you've ever faced in
Mm-hmm.
your life.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can come on top a champion, secure this
Mm-hmm.
48 hours, run your mile and a half, do your push ups, do your sit ups,
Mm-hmm.
and be the man that you've always wanted to be. Be the person that if you had a dad, that dad would say, I'm proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
man, I tell you, I was close to quitting. And I don't quit. Like, I have too much pride in myself to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And something just pushed me through. And Like I just remember saying like you have to do this. Like you even though like my mom didn't need me and my stepdad, my brother, sister didn't need me,
Mm-hmm.
like the name that was on my chest, Odell, like I
Mm-hmm.
represented them. And so if I
Mm-hmm.
quit, I'm not only letting myself down, but I'm letting the people who sent me here, I'm letting them down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to do that. So I pushed it through, and I was one of the leaders of that week. They have certain like scores, and I got the one of the top scores on that final day. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
take that last test, the physical assessment test, right? That was the best mile and a half I had ever run to that point, best push-ups that I ever done to that point, best sit-ups that I so like something I don't know like what necessarily snapped in me, but something snapped in me where it was just like like I literally went from boy to man in that moment when I said I'm not going to quit. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it with everything that I am. And
Yeah.
then just like that, it was like my whole life just flipped to that.
That's so interesting. And I'm sure there were so many things that actually like changed that you didn't even realize till later.
Yeah.
Even like priorities and how much it would take a year after that to actually get you to the point of tapping out. Like that it
Yeah.
would take infinitely more
Mhm.
to tap out. Gosh. Oh, man. That's so interesting. The only HE double hockey sticks week I ever did was in football in San
Yeah.
Diego in 10th grade on the Navy SEAL base in San
Oh,
Diego is where we did it.
okay. Yeah.
And I remember my coach, I only played one season, and of the season I quit after 3 games because I
Yeah.
realized I'm not a football player. What am I
Yeah.
doing here? And I needed to stick to lacrosse and skateboarding, which was my life at that point.
Yeah.
But I remember him walking through the barracks, whatever, with this little ghetto blaster, blasting like some kind of weird soundtrack from like Conan the Barbarian or something. It was weird. It's like this medieval noises and stuff and like
Yeah.
clanging swords. And it was like 5 a.m. He's like, oh, get up, you maggots, or something. And I was like, what did I get myself into? But I
Yeah.
tell you, Danny, at the end of, I think it was 5 days, at the end of those days, without question, the best physical shape I've ever been in my
Yeah.
life. The amount
Yeah.
of leg lifts we did, the amount of running we did, the amount of everything we did. There was no other moment in my life, and it's interesting, right? When people say they don't want, like, our pain and stress and tension avoidance culture
Yeah.
does not lead to strong people. Because
Yeah.
how can you ever get strong without pain?
Yeah.
And you see someone who's really strong, like my wife, and I go, wow, she's been through some stuff, and she
Yeah.
sure has.
Yeah.
And here she is on the other side, and she is tough cookie.
Yeah.
And then I look at you, and I'm like, oh, well, that explains, why
Yeah.
you've got the confidence and the swagger you have of just being like, I don't ever think of, oh, Danny is just like a grown boy.
Right.
I don't think of you that way, but I probably would had you not gone through that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I would not be like the the man that I am today. And I always say like the military has been the best and the worst thing that I've ever done in my life. Like, and there's so
Yeah,
many different reasons as to why. I mean, I've made
yeah,
plenty of mistakes while I was in the military, but the
right.
benefits on the outcome, like without the military, I wouldn't have been able to move to North Carolina. Without the military, I wouldn't be able to go to school for free and you know get my bachelor's degree that everybody that I knew back when I was in high school was like, nah, Danny's not going to become anything. He won't get a degree. Without the military, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't. And although the Panthers aren't, the number one priority in my life, like I wouldn't be able to have those season tickets that I have without the military. Like everything that the military brought, good and bad, and ended out, in a really good spot in my life, So
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't regret any of it.
So cool. So cool. Isn't it weird how like hindsight is 2020? Like when you're in the middle of something, it's hard to see the value in it, and it's hard to see the end of the tunnel sometimes, but then you look back and you're like, I'm so glad that I kept on, because knowing what I know now, but that's life is sometimes you just have to keep going, even though you don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
And trust that you're going the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like trusting the process, right? In sports. I always relate everything back to sports. So like the Philadelphia 76ers, right? For the last 7 years, they've been trusting the process, like building a franchise. And I'm not saying that I don't even like the 76ers, but like you trust that process. So in the beginning of my military time, like I was far away from my family. Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't, why am I doing this to myself? But at the end, at the end of my 7 years, like I'm the best me that if I didn't join the military, I'd be stuck being an assistant manager at a UFIT health clubs and living the same life, going to the bars at night and partying up. Like the military really, like, it not only did it took me from being a boy, but from being a man, but like the internal stuff, like the discipline, the integrity,
honor,
all of that honor, right? And like none of that stuff, I wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for the military, right? Like, so I attribute who I am today, in trusting God's process in my life and trusting the military. And I think I turned out okay.
Time will tell, buddy boy.
Yeah.
Time will tell. Well, listen, we need to start coming in for a landing here, but I do have a question, and this will be interesting because it'll be on record.
Yeah.
Because this episode will not air until well after the NFL draft.
Oh, boy.
But I just read that Bryce Young has stopped taking appointments with interested teams.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a shoo-in now that he will get drafted. But I was sitting at lunch on Friday, and ex-NFL, I say ex, but veteran Major League Baseball player who I was speaking with at some schools that day, Tony Womack, played 16 years in the majors, but then we were talking about the draft coming up, and he said he thinks that the Panthers should take Richardson over both the most common answers, Bryce Young and who's the other guy?
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud, yeah.
Yeah.
But what say you, Danny? Let the record speak. This is going to be...
How much time do we have?
Engraved. No, I just need a name. Who are the Panthers taking?
Let me give you two scenarios.
Two scenarios. Here we go.
It won't take long. This is what's going to happen. So either the Houston Texans really like Bryce Young, and they're going to trade up to that number 1 pick for their number 2 pick and their number 12 pick in the draft. So we'll swap the top 2 picks, and then we'll get the 12th pick, and then they'll draft Bryce Young, and then we'll get CJ Stroud. Okay. If that doesn't happen, we're getting Bryce Young. Anthony Richardson is not this guy. Not a chance.
Okay.
Not a chance.
He's pointing to Cam Newton, by the way.
Yeah, if you don't know, this is the best quarterback that ever played for the Panthers.
There you go.
Anthony Richardson isn't that.
Uh-huh.
But I won't. I
All
won't be
right.
mad either way. I won't be. Listen, all I've ever said is we'll draft whoever we want to draft as long as it brings me a Super Bowl. I can die a happy man.
Hey, just never forget that Tom Brady was drafted in the 5th round.
Coaching.
Never forget. What'd you say?
I said coaching.
Coaching.
Yeah.
Coaching. Yeah.
He also beat
Exactly.
the Panthers, so I don't like him. So
Exactly. Danny, it's been great, man.
yeah,
It's been really great. We'll have
so
to do
much
it again
fun.
sometime.
I'm always
We'll
available.
have to... Is this the first time you've been on a podcast before?
Yes, and
Or have you done it before?
No, I've always wanted to be on a podcast, but this
So
is the
cool.
first time. Yeah,
Heck yes.
yeah. So let me
Most
come back.
Most people that I've interviewed so far, because I'm interviewing regular people, like just
Yeah.
people I know, which is the
Yeah.
coolest thing. Not to say that we're any less valuable than famous people, but
Right.
we're getting ours, you know? They can have theirs. We're getting ours.
Yeah.
We're getting our airtime, getting the stories out there.
I get my paycheck after this, right?
Yeah, I'll send it in Dogecoin. It's going to be made out to Danny Odell's future child.
Yeah.
All right, man. Danny, have a great night. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.